Okay, yesterday we finished Tzitzis. Let's start a little bit about Tefillin. The Pasuk says about Tefillin, L'man tia Teiras Hashem beficha. About Tefillin it says the Torah Hashem should be in your mouth. So from there the Gemara learns out, Huksha kol Torah kula l'Tefillin. The whole Torah is likened to the mitzvah of Tefillin. Therefore, Tefillin is a very, very important mitzvah. Whoever doesn't put on Tefillin is considered, the Gemara calls him Pesha Yisrael Bagufei. He's a rebellious Jew with his body. And if somebody wears non-kosher Tefillin, so not only are they not putting on Tefillin, but then they're getting all those brachas in vain that they said all the years without putting on kosher Tefillin. Therefore, halachically, people need to make sure that the Tefillin are kosher. Halachically, they need to be checked twice in 7 years, like mezuzahs twice in 7 years. Some poskim write, and the Rebbe encouraged that people should check the tefillin every year, in fact. It's brought down in Chodesh Elul, the Matar Ephraim brings down that you check your tefillin, the month of Elul, just to make sure it's 100% kosher. In fact, it says in Halacha and in Zayar, there's something called a kakafta d'lei manach tefillin. Kakafta is Aramaic for a head. It says over there, kakafta d'lei manach tefillin, a head that never wore tefillin, has no chelik in olam haba. So therefore, if you meet a Jew in the street who never put on tefillin before, or for that matter, never put on kosher tefillin before, and he puts on tefillin once, you're removing him from that category of a kakafta d'lei manach tefillin. You're allowing him now to go to olam haba. So it's very important, the person should make sure to buy tefillin from a proper person, and the straps. There's a lot of scandals going on, always was, will always be, with tefillin. The straps have to be leather. There was a time there was a whole scandal, they were making them out of plastic. But the plastic is not kosher, it has to be made out of leather. And the ritzuos, the ritzuos have to be black. That's halacha l'Moshe Sinai, that the straps have to be black. The batim, the actual bottom of the tefillin, as it literally means the houses of the tefillin, halachically don't have to be black. The reason why it's made black is it's called hiddur mitzvah because it looks nicer. You know, it just looks nicer when it's black and everything is black. It matches.
When you say the plastic straps, are you referring to also composite leather, the one that reconstituted leather?
No, some things are just actually not leather. They're just fake leather with plastic, and that's no good. Okay, so you have to buy them, if they're cheap, you can assume they're not kosher. Okay, you have to spend money. You make sure they're always, especially the ritzuos, are black. And, basically, a person has to make sure that the tefillin are kosher.
Somebody that never puts a tefillin and somebody puts a tefillin on it for the first time, even if their tefillin is not kosher.
So they didn't put on tefillin?
Doesn't matter.
No, they didn't put on tefillin.
And somebody that inadvertently was wearing non-kosher tefillin for years, but he was coming to synagogue and everything else, so that's all
He went to a nice place, he davened nicely, but he didn't get the mitzvah of tefillin. He didn't get the mitzvah of tefillin. Okay, now what is the minimal amount of time that tefillin need to be on the person? So according to halacha, if you just put on the tefillin, take them off, you did the mitzvah of tefillin. The minig is, it should be on for Krishma, for saying the Shema, at the time of davening, but technically the poskim right, if you just put it on and off, you're yotze the mitzvah. Usually if you're meeting somebody, you're putting on tefillin, you say part of Shema at least with them, that they should get also the mitzvah of Shema. Tefillin psulim that we said, huh?
Both on the hand and the head. It's important that you have to have before they separate mitzvahs. Someone said there's a heter of 100 rabbanim, but just on the head if someone's rushing.
Heter rabbanim is good to marry a second wife, according to Rabbeinu Gershom. Heter rabbanim.
What if you put the tefillin in, you do the bata, but it's too loose, and you have to take it again and put it up.
No, you don't make a new bracha. You just fix it. Okay, now, you have a lot of issues over here. Number one, okay, so number one, the two tefillins are two separate mitzvahs. It's not counted as one mitzvah, and the tayag mitzvah is counted as two different mitzvahs. There's the head tefillin and the hand tefillin. In Shulchan Aruch it says, and this is a rare din, because usually when Shulchan Aruch says the halacha, it doesn't say what you need to think at the time you're doing the mitzvah. By Sukkah it says, by tefillin, Shulchan Aruch says that when you put on tefillin, what must you think about? That Hashem commanded us to put tefillin on the hand and on the head, that we should bind our mind and heart to Hashem, that everything we do and everything we think, the head should all be, serving Hashem in any way whatsoever, in every way whatsoever. So but there's two separate mitzvahs. What happens if somebody, for whatever reason it is, cannot put on the hand tefillin? They're cast all the way from here down, they can't put on tefillin. Or God forbid, it's a hand amputated. The hand they're supposed to put tefillin on, it was amputated. Nevertheless, you still have to put on the head tefillin. What happens if somebody cannot put on the head tefillin? They don't have a head, let's say. So then you still need to put on. So yeah, by the way, it's a story with the Rebbe. The kids before bar mitzvah used to go into the Rebbe for yechidas for the bar mitzvah. And usually the Rebbe would ask him either to say a little bit of the pilpul, the discourse that they were prepared for the bar mitzvah, or a little bit of the maimer, and then the Rebbe would ask him a question, mamish a minute, and the Rebbe asked him a question, that was it. So one kid, the discourse was, what happens if somebody doesn't have a hand? What do you do with the head tefillin? Do you put it on or not? So the Rebbe looked at him, smiled, and said, and what happens if somebody doesn't have a head? So then what do you do? The kid knew I think he knew what he answered. But anyway, the bottom line is then you put on, or sometimes people have bandages, God forbid, they had a brain surgery, whatever. For whatever reason it is. So each one is a separate mitzvah. Now, what?
If the cast is a full-on cast, doesn't the other hand become a dominant hand for
No.
that person?
First of all, it's the weaker hand.
The weak hand.
You have to put one on the weaker hand.
Person with one hand.
Huh?
Person with one hand.
How are they born? With one hand? No, it's not. It's the whole discussion in halacha. But you can't put it on the... In other words, if you're a right-handed person, and you, God forbid, became paralyzed in the right, on the left, whatever, you can't change hands. It has to be Yad Cha, it's spelled Yud Dalet Chof Hey, which is Yad Kei, or the weaker hand. Then we'll discuss exactly what that means. There's a lot in halacha discussing what that... It depends. If that's his weaker hand that he should be putting on tefillin, then he has to have somebody putting. Obviously, he can't do it himself, so he has to have somebody putting on tefillin. But the main part of the tefillin, by the way, is where the box is, where the bias is. The mashal. What happens if somebody has a cast from? Now, the tefillin have to touch your body. They can't be on anything. If they don't touch your hand or in head, then you're not yotze the mitzvah. So what happens, God forbid, somebody has a cast from the elbow to the hand. Okay? But over here, where the bias goes, it's open. So then din is, they put it on there with the bracha, and then they just wrap the straps over the cast, because the strap wrapping is not that vital part of the mitzvah. The main thing is the bias should be tied. What happens if somebody has a cast all the way up here? So you can't, halachically, you're not yotze the mitzvah. The custom is you put it on without a bracha over the cast. But you can't put it on the other hand, because that other hand is not where you're mechuyev to put on tefillin. You got to just switch hands, because that's what you decided to do. What?
A soldier that wasn't Rahi, Hashem lost his left arm in war. What does it do?
So then if he becomes a left-handed, then it becomes his dominating hand. So which hand does he put it on?
I'm saying, no, he doesn't have an arm anymore.
I understand, but he put it on the left arm.
Yeah.
So which hand is weaker now? It's not so simple.
He still has his right hand.
I understand, but the shaylas is he muchayiv tefillin.
So that's my question.
He's not bepashtus. Yes, that's good shaylas. There's a lot of arguments in poskim exactly what that means. The guy became, God forbid, paralyzed. Do you put it over the hand? There's no feeling. Do you do it? There's a lot of discussion in that stuff. But that's already complicated.
If we meet, like I'm saying, practically, if we meet a person that's paralyzed,
Which hand is paralyzed?
if it's a weaker hand,
The left hand, let's say. So you put tefillin on it with the bracha.
we do put tefillin on that?
If it's paralyzed, you could put tefillin with the bracha because the hand is still there.
When you put tefillin on somebody, for example, he has a watch, you have to ask him to take it off, or you can do it.
Not really, because again, the watch is not, the ritzuas are not part of the actual mitzvah. You have something here on his head, you have to take it off. But I'm saying, in fact, it's interesting. Everybody knows, okay, let me go back a little bit. Okay, they're two separate mitzvahs, okay? But there's a big argument, do you make one bracha for both, or do you make a separate bracha on each one? Okay, so many people say make a bracha al laniach tefillin on the hand, and then they make a bracha al mitzvahs tefillin on the head, and the minhag is they say baruch shem kved malchus le'olam va'ed, because there's a big argument, because some opinions say that when you make a bracha on the hand and you don't talk, then one bracha covers both. What happens if you talked things not pertaining to tefillin? Because if you talk about tefillin, then it's all part of the mitzvah. If you talk things not pertaining to tefillin, so then you have to make a bracha on the shorosh al mitzvahs tefillin. Okay, that's what. But many people. That's why. What do? Most people, when you put on tefillin, you wrap it up, but you don't do the fingers. You do it the 7 times, then you put on the shorosh, and then you wrap up the fingers. Why is it done like that? Because the fingers are b'chal not that important in the mitzvah of tefillin. So you want to minimize the hefsek, the separation between the hand and the bracha on the hand and the head. So you do it, and then this is not that important, so you put on the head, that should be less of a hefsek. The Moshe has brought down the Vilna Gaon, maintained this is also not that important. So he would put on the tefillin, tie it, he wouldn't even tie 7 times around the arm, and then he right away put on the head tefillin.
Then put it.
And then wrap it. But the minhag ha'olam, what?
The first 3 straps that holds it against the arm, we arm it with 3 straps. Right?
No.
Is that important? Like I'm saying, would that be considered?
Rather than,
That's height.
huh?
Sometimes I can tell them on my phone to put, and they don't do it.
If they don't do it, as long as the bias is held firmly, that's the mitzvah. Now, what?
So if you go on the time and the person's really in a rush, could you just do the bicep and the head?
No, because it's not the way you do it. I mean, it's. If he's that rushed, it doesn't take that long.
Sometimes you have to really convince them.
Okay, so you do it while they're walking, What?
In the camps,
So the Cuban says he has a hefty mayor.
One second.
in the camps, when they had a whole group of 40, 50 however many, and they were passing, filling up, it had to go couple by couple by couple on each person, or they could do hand separately and head separately.
No, you're supposed to do it on, well, it's not for now, but the pasuk says, "Ukshartem la'es hayadecha," that's singular. La'es al yadecha is singular. Then it says, "Ulteitafais bein einecha," teitafis is plural. Therefore, the minhag is, even when you take off the tefillin, first you take off the shorosh and then you take off the shalyad. Why do you take off the shorosh first? Because if you take off the shalyad, then there's only one tefillin on the head. And the Torah says, "Teitafes," when it's on the head, it should be 2. Now, if you don't have a hand or whatever, you can't put it on, there's no choice. But l'chatchila, that's why you put on the hand first, and you right away then put on the head, and then you fix the fingers. Now, another interesting din is, it says, "Ukshartem la'es hayadecha, l'cha la'es hayadecha." So if you ever notice, people cover the shalyad tefillin, either with a cover, which some people hold you're not allowed to, but the minhag is that we do, and that's what our minhag is, that you put on the cover. Some people even put the sleeve through it. But the head tefillin is supposed to be uncovered. Now in Kabbalah, that's an halacha. Because it says, that they will see there, and the Gemara says that's the tefillin of the head tefillin. So therefore, head tefillin has to be noticeable. The head tefillin, therefore you can't, there's a whole discussion, what happens by mistake if a guy put on the head tefillin with the casing? Forgot to take it out of the case. So I'll be then, you have to put, you're not yotze, you have to, after davening, take it out and put it back on. The head. But the hand, the Torah says, "Shartam la'is yadecha." For you, la'is v'lo la'acherim. Because of that, it's brought down. Finkel Tumim brings down in the back of Shulchan Aruch that's one of the reasons we said brought down for the Baal Shem Tov also. But he doesn't even in halacha. You ever notice when they put on their handful and they cover it, either with the jacket or with the talis? Why do you cover it? It's not because it's tznius. Because this is not erva by a man. So why do you cover it? So he brings down because it says kshartum la'is al yadcha la'is v'lei la'acherim. It should be for you. So you cover it because you're showing it's only for you. The head tefillin al pi Kabbalah is late. Al pi Kabbalah is a whole thing to be discussed tomorrow, Mr. Shem.